Thank you very much, Helen. We are continuing our look back at the Amadou Diallo shooting trial again this past Friday. An Albany jury acquitted all 4 officers of all charges. And now we're going to take a look at what comes next. And towards that end, I am joined now by Anthony Gair, who represents the family estate. I want to thank you very much for being with me, Anthony. It's been, I'm sure, a very emotional time for you, difficult time. Also with me again is our own Beth Karras. Beth, I want to thank you for coming back upstairs with me. Anthony, let me ask you first, before we continue at our look ahead, what was your response to this verdict?
Well, it was very disappointing. Given the change of venue and the manner of the presentation of the case, it was not unexpected.
Now, the presentation of the case, that has been a major issue. And I've said from the beginning that it was an uphill battle for this prosecution on a number of levels, not the least of which the main eyewitness for their case, Amadou Diallo, was not alive, as is often the case in murder trials. The defense does have a slight advantage there, and some of the witnesses that they had were ear witnesses, not eyewitnesses, things of that nature. 4 officers testifying, basically all the same. What were some of the criticisms of the case?
Well, I have a lot of criticisms of the case. There was not effective cross-examination of the police officers, which could have been done. There was not effective cross-examination of the medical experts, Fackler, the wound expert, and Mason, the medical examiner. And there was absolutely none, and it was mind-boggling, cross-examination of Dr. Fife, and you could have very effectively cross-examined him as well as the other witnesses.
But there were a number of issues, Beth, and I'll go to you now, about cross-examining Dr. Fife, which perhaps it was a decision made by the prosecution. They didn't just sort of blow it off. They decided it was best in their case and in the overall sort of strategy of the case not to cross-examine him. Now, I understand that we have some information. One of our reporters at our website spoke with Dr. Fife and illuminated some of the issues that were raised by that. Tell us about it.
That's right. Not only did they not cross-examine Dr. Fife, but they chose also not to put on a rebuttal case to rebut anything that Fife said. And it's important to remember that the prosecution tried to actually have him out of the case, but the judge said, no, he can testify, but the judge limited his testimony. He could only testify about whether or not the officer's conduct was in keeping with their training and with general standards in the United States up till basically they get to the vestibule. He couldn't testify about the actual shooting or any of the observations in the police action. So it was the initial approach he testified to. And our reporter, Harriet Ryan, at the website did speak to him late last week, and we never got the information on the air because the verdict came in. But Dr. Fife told her that he was actually contacted by the prosecution to be an expert for them, but by that time he had already been retained by the defense, and perhaps there wasn't a cross-examination of him because he would have brought that out. You know, you considered me good enough to be your witness, so what are you impeaching me for now? Also, he did say what Eric Warner, the prosecutor, told me, that they were fearful of cross-examining him, of opening up the door, that is, getting into areas the judge had precluded, and then the defense could have gotten up and done a redirect examination and asked all about these areas that the judge said couldn't come in. So those were his thoughts about why he wasn't cross-examined.
Sure. What is your response?
Let me add something to that. It's not unusual in cases, whether it be a civil case for medical malpractice or this type of case, where both sides contact the expert, and that surely is not a bar to cross-examine the expert. Very basically, there's 2 general areas where you could have effectively cross-examined Dr. Fife. One is the so-called collateral attack. Dr. Fife primarily testifies for plaintiffs against police departments in brutality cases. I guarantee you that there's a score of transcripts out there with contrary statements made by Dr. Fife. Those transcripts should have been obtained, they should have been in court, and he should have, were appropriate, cross-examined on it, and it's very effective impeachment. Secondly, why not present him with the facts, according to the witnesses, that the police did not give any commands, and ask him a very simple question in that regard. Dr. Fife, I want you to assume that before these officers approached Mr. Diallo, they did not give him any commands. They did not identify themselves as police officers. In your opinion, is that good and accepted practice? Yes or no? Generally, with all the witnesses, it didn't seem like the prosecutors knew how to ask a leading question. You were getting second direct examinations of people, so I was very concerned. with that. But that's how you could have basically cross-examined Fife, and you could have turned him around, and he could have supported your case.
Yeah, I think a lot of people that I spoke to were looking for these other scenarios. What ifs? You know, what if they didn't do this, and what if they didn't do that? Because certainly there was room for that, as well as some of their tactical movements on that night. So there were some questions that were not answered.
Exactly.
I think that's why there was some dissatisfaction.
One other point is general trial strategy. You cannot leave an expert witness unscathed. You just can't do it. And my worst nightmare came to fruition in this case. They called for a readback of Fife, who's unimpeached. You can't do that.
Right, yeah, so that was when it really became a glaring issue, when they called for the readback.
But you have to look ahead.
Nothing contradictory.